Welcome to our workshop. We will begin shortly. We're just waiting for a few more folks to jump on the call. And then we will go through some introductions and the agenda and get started.
Thank you, Meg, for letting us know. We'll work on that. Thank you.
Sure. I was hunting all over for it. I could not find it, and I'm just saying. I don't know if everybody got it. I signed up last night, so.
Oh, okay.
Well, if I hadn't got the link from you, Meg, I wouldn't have been on. Thanks.
Yeah, when I found it, I sent it to people I knew that were coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the help. That's community.
Again, welcome everyone. We will start, I'll say start at 9:03. I just want to give enough folks time to hop in because we do have a full agenda. But again, thank you all for joining us today. Special shout out to Faye. Faye, good morning. All right. One more minute and we will get started. Again, thank you all for joining us today. Oh, before I forget, as a reminder, could you, if everyone can please rename themselves, if their names, if they're using something other than their name, because we are taking attendance, we want to make sure we have accurate attendance of all the folks that RSVP'd and all the folks who are just joining us today, because we really appreciate, again, your participation, and we want to make sure it reflects in our reporting. So thank you. All right, so it's 9:03, we shall get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Johnson, and thank you for joining us today for our elements of proposal writing. So successful program proposal writing. All right. As I said, my name is Sean Johnson. I am the Model Built on Faith Program Director. I'll be facilitating majority of the presentation today. We'll also have support from Ebony Smith, who is the Model Built on Faith Program Assistant. And she will be helping with some of the breakout rooms in the chat. So if you see her come offline and say some things, that's the part of the role today. We also have technical assistance from a bunch of folks on the call. Shai is on the call providing technical assistance. Say hello.
Hey, everyone.
And then I think Simone is on the call. Simone, are you on the call?
Yes, hello, everyone.
They will also be providing support. Again, these are folks from Occur, and I'll explain kind of what we do in a second. So who we are. If you don't know, I'm here to inform you. We are a model built on faith. These are free monthly workshop series designed to support faith-based and other nonprofit leaders in doing that. So we are a collaboration with the San Francisco Foundation and Occur to provide these workshops for you each year. Excuse me. So again, it's something that we take pride in. We look forward to doing to support all our organizations in the community to help them to getting where they need to be and getting the tools they need. And also take this as a space to network and connect. We'll have a couple of different forms for that as the months go on. So Don't worry if you miss someone. We are looking to have some forums so you can connect with people and continue to build community throughout the Bay Area. And if you're not from the Bay Area, because I know some folks come out of state, throughout the country or the world. So again, thank you all for joining. I also want to give special acknowledgement to the San Francisco Foundation's Faith Senior Programs Officer, Michelle Moss Chambers. I don't know if she's on the call right now. I know a lot of people are jumping in.
I'm here, Sean. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. She is our fearless leader in this, who has been steamheading the FACE initiative for a number of years. And I wanted to kind of shoot it over to her if she had any words to say this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry I'm not on video. I'm having some tech issues, which is why I'm on my phone under Mickey's iPhone. I just want to thank Sean and Okur for presenting this workshop, and I hope that you all are able to really take all the nuggets and the tools to put in your toolbox to be able to share with your organizations and other individuals. The one thing that I ask you guys to do is there is going to be a survey. Please complete the survey. This really helps us to shape and form additional workshops based on your needs. And also, please share this with your friends. This is an opportunity that we want the full community to take advantage of for faith-based organizations, congregations, and community-based organizations. Enjoy your time with us today, and thank you and welcome.
Great words. Thank you, Michelle. So with that, we're going to talk a little bit today about the workshop about elements of successful proposal writing. We're going to take a small little break, then we're going to go to part 2 of it. But before all that, we're going to kind of get into our etiquette, workshop etiquette. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows, please mute your mic, because we do have some background noise. We don't want it to distract folks from the presentation. We'll also, all the supporting staff on the call will be muting folks as they come in, or if you're having trouble with that, we can always mute you. So just put it in the chat, having trouble, can you mute me? Totally fine, we can do that as well. We also would like for folks to have their cameras on if they can, make sure that it's eye level and positioned. If you can't, it's totally fine. We're just appreciate that you're here, you're listening, and that if anything that comes out of this that can help you, please let us know. Just help you, then great. If you have questions in the chat, that's where I'm going. Please let us know. You use the chat function. It is there. You can raise your hand. And if you don't have that function available, you can always just put something in the chat, and we have folks on the call that will be able to assist. Just for a reminder for those who jumped on the call, we're asking folks to rename themselves. So with their name, so that we can make sure we take attendance, because every person counts. So we're gonna make sure that happens. Cool. All right. Also, one-on-ones, technical assistance. We have that for folks. So if you go to our website, www.amodelbuiltonfaith.org, you'll see the technical assistance there. So please connect with us. We can provide you with some one-on-one support from one of our consultants that we have lined up. And as Michelle talked about before, we have some feedback surveys. We have a number of different things. So please, if you, we'll put the link in the chat. I'm posting in the chat throughout. So please provide us with a survey. It really helps us with informing the workshop series. Okay. So with that, we're going to jump straight in. I don't know if there are any questions in the chat before we get started, because I can't see the chat right now.
There's no questions at this time in the chat.
Thank you. All right, get to it. All right. All right. Skip that. All right. Get started. All right. So I'm gonna skip the warm-up question, but I will have a couple of questions in here. So again, welcome today for Elements of Successful Proposal Writing. I always like to bring up this quote: "Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly." So the piece that I'm always reminding folks about developing programs and kind of, starting nonprofits is, do what you can to realize that vision. Because there are people out there that will resonate with that, align with it, and find ways to support you. Please don't allow anything to stifle that. I know there's a lot of challenges and things that come up for folks, but yet there are supports, there are folks that believe in it, what you're trying to do, and continue on. Because again, if you don't, then nothing will happen. And especially when we're talking about community work and supporting people, we need all we can to continue the work to support folks to have happier, healthier lives. And you are not alone in this. So always continue on. So for today, we're going to talk a bit about the purpose of grants and donations. We're going to talk about writing a proposal, successful proposal writing and tips, talk about some resources, and then we'll go to a break for a second. And then we'll have a break in between, but then we'll close out with everything. All right. So the purpose of grants and proposals and donations, we're going to jump right in. So let's have a quick discussion real quick. I know we have about 50 folks on the call. We'll probably use the chat function a little bit more today. But I'm really, really curious to see what are some of the challenges and the barriers that you're facing to some of the grants and getting grants and donations. And then what are some of the benefits? Totally use the chat, it's totally fine to come off mute. But I'm really curious, what are some of the challenges that you're facing with grant writing or obtaining grants? Latoya, you raise your hand.
Good morning. Yes, some of the challenges that I face is really time. And I've been on the other side of grant writing where I've scored grant applications or I've developed grant applications. And I think I tend to get a bit of writer's block when actually completing and submitting grant applications. And then also because I don't have relationships, I think that's something that I used to have once upon a time that was very helpful, was relationships with the other side to kind of understand what they're looking for and what they've had in the past and what has worked well and what hasn't worked well. But it's just the time to be able to develop those relationships and search out who those people would be that wouldn't be a conflict of interest.
Beautiful. And yes, Latoya, you're hitting some marks today. Relationships, time, writer's block. I know I've been there, writing a grant. Yeah, and being on the other side, is you have a different scope than other folks. I know a bit of the advice is to look at it from other people's side. So totally relevant. Anyone else? Come, totally fine to raise your hand, come off or use the chat. What are some other challenges and barriers?
Good morning, Sean. This is Faye from Overcomers with Hope. One of the challenges that I face continuously is finding a grant that is relevant to what we do. I have to give a shout out to Michelle Edmonds for letting us know about the database that's available, the San Francisco database that's available through the Oakland Library. And by drilling down through that, you're more successful in finding grants that actually apply to what you do. And so it narrows the search field, because sometimes you just get plain tired of looking for grants for your particular organization. And it seems like every grant that you come up with is teaching hip hop. Now, I have nothing against hip hop. I've got grandkids and great grandkids, and that's all good. But at some point, you have got to find funding and education and sustainability that's relative to what you do as you grow up. And that has been and still continues to be a challenge. But as I said, with the database that Michelle has presented us with, it's making it a little easier to drill down exactly to what we do. And thereby you get the benefits of locating funding and getting rid of some of those barriers that can just stop you in your tracks. You just get tired and said, I'm not doing this anymore. But something says, keep going, keep going, keep going. And so we do.
Beautiful.
And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a piece here where we talk about alignment. We're going to talk about how some of these challenges come down to that, like what is the right fit for us,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then also, where do you find like other grants? Because there might be specifically this bucket of grants that are for these programs, but not necessarily for us. So yeah, totally relevant.
Yeah. And I really have to do, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just one more shout out to Occur. I know there's somebody on there saying, how many times is Faye Oliver going to do this, how to write a proposal grant? And I'm just going to keep doing it until I feel that I'm doing it the best of my ability. And to be honest, I'm not there yet, but thank you to Occur, San Francisco Foundation, that you provide this training and working with other nonprofits that we can kind of open up a little bit and not feel so I'm in this bucket by myself. So thank you for that.
No, thank you, Faye, for continuing to come. Again, this workshop series is for folks who new, returning, anyone who just needs like kind of like the tools or maybe get some new insight. There's always new things we drop or we learn from each other during these sessions. So
and hopefully we'll get back in person so we can have some of those snacks.
Yes, the snacks.
Ebony, you feel me on this. Okay, I'm
totally fine. Thank you, Faye. Also, I see Meg said something in chat around level of sophistication of requirements for government grants. Also, gap between startup and actual getting reimbursement. Very, very relevant. There is some different. There's a different scope and scale to government grants. Been a part of a couple of those. And yeah, and then also, yeah, even right now, working with other organizations around reimbursement grants are very difficult. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. All right. Anyone else before we move on?
I just want to say something, Sean.
Yeah.
Michelle just shared with us what Faye was referring to as far as that grant. If people are interested, it's called candid.org. And it's in the chat as well.
Cool. If you do have tips, grants, the other pieces, we'll have time, just shoot it in the chat, also revisit later, because we're going to talk more about resources. Always looking for better resources later as we talk about that as well. Really quick, before we move on, forgot benefits. What are some of the benefits to grants and donation? I know this is the easy one for folks. What are some of the benefits to obtaining that grant or getting donations for your organization? Funds, love it. Yes. Thank you, Valerie. Funds. Make it a dream and possibility. Thank you, Meg. Yes. I was going to say, if you get one, you're more inclined to get another, and another, and another. Did someone come up?
Able to pay your staff.
Exactly. Majority of budgets are always staffing costs. So thank you, June. Pay your staff. Anything else coming up for folks? No? All right. Michelle also dropped the library resource in the chat. Please take a look at that. It'll be helpful for folks. We also keep that in mind, keep that link in mind for later. I have a activity later where we're going to be looking at some grants. We can also use that resource as well. I'm not held to one search engine or another. I'm totally open to folks exploring. All right. So we'll continue on. All right. So purpose of a grant and donations, right? A grant is one of the, for example, the grant is one of the government's tools for funding ideas and projects to provide public services, stimulate the economy, and benefit the general public. Donations in turn is given by anyone, usually for charitable purposes or to benefit the cause, while grants are funds given by a specific party, right? So just remember that. Anyone can give you a donation, but grants are a little bit more specific, right? And so just remember the different types of being used for nonprofits, just around building there's building grants and building or capital grants. There's also technology and IT grants. I know a couple of grants that I'm working with folks to get are really specifically around technology. And they have to be used for that, right? Or digital literacy or infrastructure, right? We also have capacity building grants, right? So this is not a grant that is suited for budding or small term nonprofits, because usually those are really for more larger scale nonprofits. And then you have general operations grants, like, again, grant money or funding that will just go for general operations, not necessarily for programming per se. Then there's the types of grants, just again, based on the different sources. You have government, you have foundations. I talked about the San Francisco Foundation. Going back to government grants, there's a ton of different government grants. And I was looking at some yesterday, and I was like, how many people are aware of their community block grants within their cities or counties? I see June. That's right. Yeah. I was surprised some years ago when I went to one of a city council meeting in Oakland that a lot of folks weren't aware. A lot of community members aren't aware, and that the funds usually are going to pretty much more established nonprofits. Yet, when I was talking to some of the members of the funds, they were just like, yeah, we want actually newer nonprofits, newer organizations to come and take these funds as well, because we are looking for folks to just, again, support the need, right? So just note there are a lot of grant and funding opportunities out there for folks. Casey, you had your hand up. I don't know if you were raising your hand and say, I acknowledge, I know about the block grants, or you had a question.
It was an acknowledgement of raising of the hand. I'm sorry.
No, totally fine. Thank you. Thank you. All right. We also have family foundations. There are private foundations, there are public foundations, there are community funds, and then there are corporate grants. So these are just the type of grants you'll see, or the donations or foundations you'll see that provide funding to individuals. So reason to apply for a grant. So look for funding, of course, right? New funding that does not need to be paid back, right? So we just talked a little bit about reimbursements. I've been involved in a reimbursement grant before, and you really do have to have the capital up front in order to make that program kind of happen, right? So just be mindful of that, because if the invoices or the budget is off, then that organization is eating the cost. So it is something where you can get funding to support initially to support your programming, of course. It also expands or creates new programs. The one thing that I talk with organizations and programs about is always expanding and kind of doing more that's aligned with their mission and vision, right? And then this kind of funding helps with that. I know some funding that went where I used to work with a couple different organizations that help with programming, help with bringing on new staff, help with expanding an initiative that necessarily did not have the capacity to be expendable, right? Or looking in a new direction where folks were going into a technology direction and they got money from like a Google or from local governments to actually do more computer labs or do more training. So that's one thing that funding can do. Also, collecting data, right? Doing the research, right? Establishing goals, then creating a responsive action plan. So the one thing that grants help folks do too is really dig deeper into the work that they're doing. Kind of create more of a model for that creates impact, and you do get support. There are some funders that will provide more support around how to create these metrics and help folks with looking at the data so that they could be really impactful. So grants do force you a bit to dig a little deeper into the work. Then it also provides more opportunities for people to reach out to other organizations and different initiatives. I think about collaboration is something that we don't talk about enough, especially with grants nowadays. Individual nonprofits that are not collaborating with other nonprofits or other entities or organizations sometimes aren't as competitive as those that do. So totally encouraging folks to look more into doing more collaboration efforts and trying to see how you can work together. And then the last piece is why not? Why not go for a grant? Why not put yourself out there and see what happens? Why not challenge yourself, challenge your organization to look into a number of different grants? Again, even to some that are $500 to some that are $100,000, right? You will not know until you apply. So always encourage folks to get the support and apply. And then also ask for feedback later on how you can do better or how you can improve if you don't get the grant. So why grants are not the answer to your nonprofit financial problem. So the common thing that comes up is that folks always think that grants are just going to be the surefire, end all, be all. That's just going to be the thing, right? And in some situations, it's not. It may not be the right fit for your nonprofit. And I listed a few reasons here. Grants will not help you start your nonprofit. Some people think that a grant was going to be the kickoff for your new nonprofit, and that's not always the case. I know a couple of friends of mine who started nonprofits. They started with individual donations. They started with like, I had a hope and a dream and a lot of energy. It took a lot out of me. And yet, now I'm more competitive for those grants because I'm more established and I actually got some capital from doing fundraising. Foundation grants really fund operating costs. So just be mindful that there's also a lot of grants out there that are not going to necessarily fund your operation costs, right? You might have a grant that's only $50,000 and then that's really programmed. It might not be salaries, it might not be administrative work, might just be strictly for the program. So again, looking at different ways to bring in kind of capital and money for you. Like again, donations, Kickstarters, looking at other different ways to do. I've even seen some folks do a hybrid model and looking at how they provided programming on a sliding scale, like again, free for low income, but maybe a cost for folks who are middle upper class, right? Not something that's super that is super encouraged, but I have seen some organizations run that way. And it helped with building the capital so that they can make sure they provide, support and money for their staff, but also then they looked into grants to help with the programming pieces, right? Another piece that comes up is foundation grants are very small. They're a very small part of any organization's finances. If you look at some nonprofit budgets, I'm on a board now, and I'm on the finance committee now. And I'm always looking at the different breakdowns, and there's again, a lot of money coming in from different places. And a lot of that money is not necessarily coming from just foundations either. I mean, again, there's not a lot going into just one big foundation grant that's going to pay for everything. No, it's really diluted with a lot of different grants, other different capital donations, different ways, membership drives, different ways for finances are coming in. So that's the one piece I always want to kind of highlight with folks. Grants take a long time to get. So they do take they take the time. We just talked about that. They take time to write, they take time to submit, they take time to get approval, it takes time to get going. So just know that it may be 6 months from when you turn in that application that you actually hear back and ready to go. So what are you gonna do in that 6 months? Right? Foundation grants come in limited flavors. So you have project grants, you got capacity grants, capacity building grants, operating fund grants, research grants, in-kind grants. So be very, very, when you're working out your proposal and you're looking at your program, make sure that you know what kind of grant you want to get into. And then small nonprofits just seek grants locally. There's a lot of local money here. Just like what I put on the chat, the library resources. There are a lot of local grants. I just talked about the community block grant. That's really available for folks. So again, keep that in mind when you're looking into funding. You don't have to look for these bigger corporate grants. You can look right in your own backyard. And there are a lot of folks that are willing to support you. Right? So how do you know if your organization is ready for a grant? So you'll know if you can spare the necessary resources to see the grant application through. So that's another piece, again, we talked about before. It takes a lot of time to actually get that up and going. I know folks that have brought on consultants, volunteers, to help with writing grants, because if you're a small nonprofit, you have limited staff, you don't have necessarily a lot of bandwidth, especially if you are the executive director and or CEO, and then also the lead instructor, and also the many multiple hats that you wear to actually write a grant. So really encouraging folks to get the resource, get the support from folks in the community if they have the capacity to do so. Does your organization or the program meet the grant conditions? So I'm gonna talk about this throughout this. Follow the instructions, make sure that everything's aligned, follow the directions, read the description. Please do not try to put a circle into a triangle or peg, a hole, right? You wanna make sure that you are meeting all the conditions, that the grant isn't really aligned for you. Right? Will the grant money come with strings attached? Some do. So just be mindful of that. And some of these strings may distract from your primary objectives. I remember sometimes on one grant, we spent more time on reporting than actually doing the program. Or we did spend time pushing a specific message to students or to I say clients, that distracted from providing, this was case management back in the day, to some of the clients around case management support, right? So just be mindful of that. Is a grant in line with your organization's mission and vision? We're gonna talk a lot about that. What does that mean? That means if it's not aligned with your organization's mission and vision, then it may not be the grant for you. Why do you need the funding? Always ask this. Genuinely ask those hard questions. Do you really need the funding? A lot of you will say yes. And then sometimes we'll bring in some volunteers and consultants, and they'll be like, well, you can do this to do that and get this in. And this grant might not necessarily be the one for you, right? Is it something that you're looking for credibility? Is it something that do you generally think that that small donations might not make up, right? So just consider those pieces when you're looking at grants, right? Do you have the experience with applying for the same or other grants, right? Do you have the experience? How did it go? You're always looking to continue to apply. Majority of grants that people apply to, folks don't get. But you always want to go back to the drawing board, see what you could have changed and what you can do differently for the next one, okay? Can your organization, again, go back to time, organization research and apply and track grant applications without distracting from the primary objective. Again, can you do this by also running an organization? And if you can't, then you might need to bring in some more support, right? So Now we're getting to the pieces of writing a grant. And so we want to take a minute out. Any questions, comments coming up for folks in the chat before I continue, because I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I mean, see anything coming up? I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at two things at once. Oh. All right, there's nothing? All right, I'll continue. Overview of this. So we're going to talk about the different processes. So developing the program plan, research to funding, and grant style align with the organization, how you write the proposal, the guidelines around that, submission of the application of the proposal, and then the follow-up with the funder. So this is the basic process of the grant writing process. So before you start writing, you got to make sure you get some things down. So serving a need and addressing a problem. So what is the problem? What problem is impacting your community, or what problem is impacting the population that you're looking to support and serve? Really getting that thing down. If you can't articulate that, then you're most likely not going to be in the running for that grant. Okay. Who is being affected, right? So if I'm saying that youth in East Oakland, for example, are not attending school or have low literacy rates, right? So it's impacting those youth, right? What's happening is this problem is impacting those youth, and this is kind of the research around that. So lower literacy rates in turn lead to higher rates of dropout, higher rates of unemployment, higher rates of this, right? So again, how is it impacting your target demographic, right? How widespread is it, right? Is it something that is pretty much outside of the scope of your organization? I always tell folks that just like, can you really address this need, right? And it's okay. I always tell people that small scale programs and projects have great impact. You'll be surprised. It might be the complete opposite. When folks go to scale, it kind of may dilute some of the impact that was generated from that one smaller program that was the core, right? Or vice versa. You know, they went larger scale and they started really seeing a lot more impact because it was a scalable model, right? But how widespread is this problem? Is it really linked to this community? Is it linked throughout the whole city? Is it linked throughout the whole country, right? So really articulating that is going to be really important. What data did you have research regarding the problem? Again, doing that research is really, really important, right? And if you are not the most research savvy person, really seeking the support. I'm going to continue to push that. That has been, for my professional growth, really important, just seeking out folks that are knowledgeable and experienced, going to trainings like you are today, and really digging down, especially if you're not the most research person. Like when I went to grad school, it was all about research for my thesis. And I went down rabbit holes and I had people to pull me back. So it was kind of an opposite thing. so really digging down the research so that you can, again, prove that this is the need, this is the problem, and this is the need. And then what service will you provide to address the need? Is it outside the scope of your organization? If it is, then it might not necessarily be the grant for you. It might not necessarily be the program for you, right? If I am a nonprofit that works with youth, I probably will not be doing anything with adults, right? Providing programming. But if I'm a nonprofit that works in technology, that means I can work with youth and adults because technology is broad. So really making sure that, again, the service that you provide is in line with what you're doing. Because I'm not going to necessarily be a technology-based program, and then I go ahead and start being, showing people how to bake, how to be a baker. It is not aligned. Another piece I talked about before: vision, mission, and goals. So making sure that you have a vision statement for your organization, if not for your program, really understanding what that is, because the vision statement kind of sounds mystical. It is pretty much your North Star. It guides you. It's your philosophy. And then with your vision statement, it's pretty much a statement that articulates your company's purpose, what they do, right? And then your goal. So what you desire, what desired result of all the things that you achieve. And then we're going to talk about objectives. So objective is really the specific measurable of the goal. So say I had a nonprofit that's vision is about changing the world through health education. And then my mission is really specifically around providing people within impacted communities with education, classes and trainings, right? To help shift different dynamics, right? My goal is to have healthier, happier communities. Objectives with that, how we measure that is by, could be more doctor visits, could be better nutrition, like folks are more aware of different nutrition or healthier foods. It could be exercise, so folks are being more active, right? So how do you measure that? Some of that could be through surveys. Some of that could be through number of attendance or hours that people complete within those health classes. Some of that could be with shifting how, it could be even different advocacy groups that are going into schools and helping with having more informed and healthier menus options, right? Or providing healthier foods within different communities, right? So, and then you do some surveys around that. So making sure that your goal is measurable is the piece that's always going to come, especially when you're talking about your grants, right? And making sure that all these things align with each other, really important. Because if they're out of alignment, then it's going to show up, and then you're going to kind of, again, go back to how you're doing a program that is not necessarily aligned with kind of your vision mission statement, okay? So, talk about SMART goals. I always talk about SMART goals. SMART goals are fun. And so when you're thinking about making your goals, you have to make sure that they are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. I know I know most of you have heard about this. I'm going to just continue to repeat it because sometimes people don't necessarily have goals that are within this SMART rubric. I'm telling folks, please, please, please go back to your SMART rubric. Make sure that it holds the test. Because again, if it doesn't, it's going to show up. Okay. So making sure it's specific, measurable, achievable, because some people make goals that are not achievable, right? That are relevant, that it aligns with the objectives. It makes sure that it is complete something that you all can do. And it's time bound, because you will have specific time to actually achieve some of these goals, right? It may be 10 years. Some people may have 6 months, right? Depending on your program or what you do. It could be lifelong. But again, the whole point is to try to make that change and that impact. And making sure you have goals that are realistic is going to be, or the SMART rubric are going to be the real key. So a couple of examples of mission and vision. I always like I always like Goodwill's Industries. I like their kind of their mission and vision statements. Goodwill Industries, the mission statement. Goodwill Industries International enhances the dignity and quality of life of individuals, families, and communities by eliminating barriers to opportunities and helping people in need reach their fullest potential through the power of work. Okay. Their vision: every person has the opportunity to achieve his or her full potential and participate in and contribute to all aspects of life. As you see, the vision is really that North Star, that pie in the sky, that beautiful thing. Again, every person has the opportunity to achieve, right, their potential, right, contribute to all aspects of their life. And then specifically, Goodwill does this. We enhance the dignity and quality of life of individuals, families, and communities by eliminating barriers to opportunities, right? Helping people in need reach their fullest potential through the power of work, right? So they are, and start thinking about now, like they are a work-based program, and they're there to help people around this. And again, their pie in the sky is to help people reach their full potential. So if you're going for if you're going for grants that are not aligned with, if you're part of Goodwill, you're going for grants that are not aligned with this, then you're going to have probably run into some problems, if not initially, later on. Another good example, Nature Conservancy, really nice organization, kind of connected with some of those folks from there, and they have some beautiful buildings and do some incredible work. Their mission, the mission of the Nature Conservancy is to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends. Very simple. Our vision is to leave a sustainable world for future generations. Pretty short, truly to the point. clear, concise. I get what they do, right? And if you are with the organization or are developing a mission and vision where it's not that clear and concise, then again, seek the support, get the help. But this is this beeline, great example, not super wordy, really to the point, and it's easy to find alignment with their grants later on. Here are some examples, some goals, right? So I found some goals here and there, looking at different ways for folks to do. And here are some specific ones. Example 1, by June 2014, serve 10,000 meals after school to 4th graders in the service area, right? Or notice how the criteria is attached to it, like everything is specific date, there are specific numbers, there are some specific things, right? And it's a real lofty goal. It's really big, right? And then you can really measure that by like how many meals you provide for those 4th graders, right? It's really easy to measure. Another example, by the end of the first year, and we're talking about the grant cycle or the program cycle, at least 50% of children in the program will see their test scores improve by at least 1 letter grade. Really specific, really, really simple. Again, really easy to measure and to evaluate because again, you already have the number of children within that program. And then you probably already got some waivers there, and you can also just measure their grades increasing over that year. Okay. In this example that we've used at least to set a floor for the target. So you want to make sure at least 50%, right? It may be at least or a minimum 25 or 30, right? I also want to make sure that folks are being very realistic around some of the things and take the wording. It's not all children, it's not children within the school, it's just children within their program. So even if they have 20 children in their program, at least 10 of them will see an increase in their grades. Okay. Always a good idea to make room for exceeding the expectation. So you always want to try to make room, right? But not necessarily make it so low that it's just too easy, right? You want to challenge yourself, but also find that sweet spot. Again, consulting with folks will help with that. And the last example of the program's completion, at least 70% of participants will report gaining an understanding of how to save money each month as measured by pre-tests and surveys. And I like how the evaluation tools, the basic ones, are really inserted in there. We can also look at different other ways that people have saved money, or you might look at other measures of how they have increased their income. But that's kind of the piece that we're going. Some of these things will be captured within surveys pre and post. So you got a good baseline for where folks were. So if you're saying somebody didn't have a bank account, couldn't save $2, right? And they listed that within that pre-survey, and then their post after program, they saved $200, which is a huge achievement for a lot of people. Okay. So I talked about this before. Again, I want you to put it in the chat. Here are a couple of sources where you can find grants, grants.gov, foundation directories, San Francisco Foundation. There are also the libraries. You can look into those resources. So they're always there. And again, we're gonna put these in the chat a little later too, because it's gonna be part of our activity. All right. So really quickly, I wanna kind of break us out into some breakout rooms. Have some discussion real quick. And pretty much basically just kind of want folks to identify a couple of different nonprofits, organizations that have a vision, mission, and goals that really align with them. It doesn't have to be anything super substantial, but I just want folks to kind of just engage in the conversation. Want to go over to grants.gov, identify some grants that may align with some of those organizations. If they don't align, let's talk about alternative ways to provide some funding sources, right? So we'll take about 20 minutes. I'm encouraging folks to do some discussion. And Ebony will be a facilitator and support for one group. I will be the facilitator and support for the other. And then we'll come back and debrief, okay? So I'm gonna set up the breakout rooms real quick. We'll do 2. And I'll put close automatically in 20 minutes. Right. And then we'll have a 60-second counter. So folks will know. Okay. All right. Make sure Ebony is in the other one. Cool. Cool. All right. What's open? Please join when you can. All right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was muted. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
everybody.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Buenos dias.
Good morning.
Well, for me, all this is new to me, so I'm just learning.
I'm right there with you, Don. Same here.
Okay.
I understand.
Same here.
Yeah.
Me also. Every time we do this, I find out something new. So it looks like it changes weekly, if not daily.
Right.
Okay.
So the activity for this breakout room, he given us 20 minutes, which is not enough time. However, we're gonna try to see if we can make it work. So identify 2 or 3 nonprofit programs, organization whose vision, mission, and goal statement resonates with your group. And he had given us a site, is grants.gov. Identify grants that align with those organizations. If you cannot find any grants that align, propose alternative funding options. So I know everyone doesn't, probably not on their phone, not on a computer. So I'm going to try to share my screen. And I believe I can share my screen. I'm trying to see if I can.
I'm at the website.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things I could click on.
Yes, this site is not the most user-friendly. It's a lot of information and different ways you can search for things.
Mm-hmm.
Ebony, I'm wondering, can we try the Oakland Public Library site?
Yes, let me get that one up because I did jot that one down.
Is Candid available in other city libraries as well, or is it only for Oakland?
It is, oh, this is Michelle. I was going to jump in. It is available at other city libraries.
Jump in, Michelle.
Thank you. San Francisco, I only checked San Francisco. So San Francisco Library had it, but if you do not have an existing San Francisco Library card, you do need to travel to one of their libraries to get set up. Oakland will allow you to get a public library card, an Oakland Public Library card free on their website and immediately start searching. So you could do it from your house. You can apply online. It's free to any California resident. You can, they'll give you a card number and a PIN and you would start using that to search.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
I actually cannot share my screen. Yeah, I can't even share my screen at all. Wait, nope, let's take that back. Let me stop lying.
If you can, Ebony, let me know and I'll try to get on mine.
Perfect. Let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
So
yes.
How do you want me to search on here for you? I have 2 monitors, so you may see me looking at like some on my second monitor. So how would you like me to search for you?
Well, on this, you would need to be logged in. Do you have an Oakland Library card login?
You just can't just search.
No, you cannot. Yeah, you cannot just search. You have to be logged in.
I do not have an Oakland Library card.
You want me to share my screen and I could take the guides?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Is it possible you can make that?
Mine.
See if you can make it possible for me to share my screen. You can walk through and I'll just do the typing and it'll be easier.
Perfect. Let me stop sharing mine. And then I'm gonna go see if I give you permission. Multiple participants. Okay, there we go. You should be able to share yours now. Is that Michelle?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Michelle, you should be able to share your screen now.
Can you see it? Does it blue?
Yes, I see it. Can everyone else see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take the input because I'm not sure what the exercise is. So you tell me what you want to search for and I'll pull up the searches.
So we probably have all different initiatives. So I don't know what the consensus is because it says identify 2 or 3 nonprofit programs, organizations whose vision, mission, and goal statements resonate with your group. And as a group, we could have all different initiatives.
True.
So I don't know what the consensus is, and maybe we just go with the majority if that's okay. Just do a quick poll of what people are here for, and then from there, whatever the most we get, then we search for those types of grants. Is that a fair way to go about that?
Yes.
Myself, I'm a volunteer at my church, and I'm just looking for resources for my church organization to grow their community outreach.
So community outreach. And what is your community?
So I live in Livermore, but my church is in Pomona.
And do you have a specific community? Is it youth program services, elders, homeless?
Because I'm doing research right now, I'm just tapping to find out, because I'm new to this whole process. I'm seeing what is available and then going to take the route that has the least resistance so that those resources could help. Because the span of ministry encompasses all of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So anyone else want to share so we can kind of narrow it down?
Yes, hi, I'm with the Providence Foundation of San Francisco, and we deal with youth, seniors, and the enfranchised or homeless in the community. And we'd also like to be able to try to figure out how to make a community awareness of what we do and how it's being done and who we can help.
Okay. So I guess in the interest of time, it's safe to say that most of the services, everyone here is geared towards community, whether it's youth, seniors, homeless or whatnot. So I guess look into housing services, or is it literacy, education, health?
Then I might recommend, say, economically disadvantaged.
There we go.
Right. People. Okay.
Yes, and I would like, I don't know if I'm in the right place or not, but my organization reaches out to the motherland in the arts, and we provide mentorship. Yeah.
So more arts and creative.
Yeah, and out, that expose our children to
Black
the
arts and Black
in the diaspora.
Okay.
So
I would say that the working with socially economic and providing services, whether for homeless or for youth, probably buckets really well together. And I would do a separate search for arts and creativity because they're usually fairly different grants.
Class, I'm gonna quickly go to the bathroom and I don't want to hear a single noise, okay? I'll be back in a few seconds.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Michelle, real quick.
I'm gonna click human services here because that covers basic aid, family services. You see job services, shelter and residential care. So we're gonna cover some very broad categories. And we're going to say that the location where the funding will be used, we're just going to say California, because we actually mentioned Pomona, which is in Southern California, and we also have the San Francisco Bay Area. So maybe we'll say California, and then those are specific to the Bay Area. So we will be, and I'll click search. So I just put in some broad categories that cover kind of the bulk of what we do. Although, as I mentioned to, I think, Sister Dorothy, if you want to do arts, I would go back to subject area and search for that separately.
You have to have a membership to use this website right here, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question. Could you repeat it?
You have to have a membership to use this specific resource site, correct?
You normally do, and it's rather costly, but the Oakland Public Library has made it available free online. It was something that came out of COVID. So they made it free available online with an Oakland Public Library card, which you can get free from the website.
Got it.
The library card and the pen. And once you have the library card and the pen, you can go through the public library website and you'll get directly into this data.
Access into this. Oh, that is awesome. Thank you.
Very cool. So I have, of course, the San Francisco Foundation came up at the beginning of the search. So these are the grant makers that came up. And someone keep an eye on the time for them. I think we have about 9 minutes left. These were some of the grant makers that came up here on the left. You see Fidelity Investments, Silicon Valley Community Foundation down in Mountain View, the Wells Fargo Foundation, which is in Minneapolis, but as you know, is largely functioned to San Francisco. San Francisco Foundation and Bank of America. And so those are just the first 4 that came up. There are actually 13,000 results. So if I'm going to click view all, if you can see it on the right, mine is covered by the people. And I'm just going to scroll down a little bit, and then you'll see just even the first 10, 20 list. It makes it really easy to start to research for grants. But if you don't mind, I'll just click on the San Francisco Foundation, if I may. And then once you pull up a foundation, you see why you think, oh, I want to check into that, and you click on its name, it will open up to an entire detailed page of the organization. It will, let me click on menu. You'll have funding interest. What areas do they match with your organization? Similar foundations. If you think San Francisco Foundation is a match, it will list additional foundations, other funders to consider. I'm sorry, related organizations and other funders to consider based on similar patterns of giving. It'll talk about their application process, their financials, who's in their organization, and communications they've put out. And so that's the overview. And as you scroll down through the page, that's what you're going to find. You're going to find who they've made grants to. These are grants that have been distributed. They'll list who the organization is, where they are, what it was for. This is really important to you. You want to look at their funding interest. So for example, if you have a geographic focus, I think the sister mentioned, Miss Donna Deborah mentioned that she has a motherland focus. Well, part of the geographic focus here is Kenya as well. So that there may be a match there. It also mentions arts and culture. So there may be an opportunity there. You want to look at these areas to see, does this foundation match up with what's important to my agency and the work that we do? Is there a match? And when there's a match, you're going to want to research further. And then as you scroll down the page, you get details about purpose and activities. They might have their history. In this case, they list all of their program areas. It just is a lot of information for you to be able to say, you know what, does this make sense that if I apply to this organization, they would be really interested in the work we're doing. They would want to partner with us to do this work. This is a section that talks about other funders to consider. The East Bay Community Foundation in Oakland is listed here. Others you may not have heard of. That's why it's really great, because out of 13,000, it's a lot of information to process. If you look at other funders, it's like a little cheat sheet to say, well, if I match with this one, I might match with these other 6. They're kind of pre-selecting them for you. And then application details, any limitations, always pay close attention to that, and what we won't do, what we do not do. Is that? And then who's in the organization. So I didn't want to take up the whole time, but I thought maybe if we could walk through a foundation listing, you could see this is what Ms. Faye was talking about. You can start to drill through any press releases they've had. What you want to do, it's like going for a job interview. You know, if you interview for a job, you should research the company, you should find out about the position. It's very similar. You want to see, is there a close match to the work that we do?
No, thank you. No, this is really insightful, and definitely I want to reach out to you, see if we can do some for our clinics and have you come on and talk about that a little bit more in depth about this site, if you're available. So I will reach out to you. This is great information.
Hi, Michelle, thank you. This is Faye. There was just one more comment with this particular database that you can really drill down in. One of the participants on this call, I think I heard someone say something about establishing relationships. If you look at this particular source that Michelle has shared with us, and under each of the organization, there's a who's who, or people who work with the organization. You can actually go in and look and see who works with the organization. And I bring this up because in looking at that, I actually found a person I used to work with at another company before I retired. Reached out to her and was able to get in at least on their list for the next opening that they had for grants. So it didn't get me a grant, but I knew somebody there that kind of opened a door, if you will. So there's a ton of information on this particular site, and I've got my library card and pen and all that, and I live on this site. So there's a lot to it as you can drill down and looking at, there you go there with the who's who, and you never know who you know because of your contacts and relationships in the Bay Area. So I thought I'd just throw that out there because it surprised me to no end, and I use it all the time.
And it also, thank you for that. I should cover that. That's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah, for relationships. Yeah.
Relationships. Do your board members know someone? Do you have a volunteer that knows someone? If you're really active in LinkedIn, sometimes the foundations, this is a big feature, is the LinkedIn profile will be linked there. And then you can go and see, are you linked to this person through anybody else? Yes. So it's a great resource to find out and to make those relationships that we were saying are so difficult to get.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Well, anything else you want me to go into?
Let's see. I guess see what their mission statement is. If I'm not sure if it shows that, like what their mission statement is, or.
Oh, that's if you look at an organization. So if you were to look at more, we might be able to find that. Let's go back. Let's see, where were they? Let's see, it should be.
You think in the about section?
Thank you. Can you read that? Mine's a little bit small.
Let me see. Oh, the background, or more so about the purpose and activity?
More about the purpose and the activities, because that's really where you're going to get the mission and vision and why they do what they do and what they care about.
A grant-making public charity dedicated to improving life within a specific local region. The foundation's mission is to mobilize resources and act as a catalyst for change to build strong community, foster civic leadership, and promote philanthropy in the San Francisco Bay Area, together with community leaders, nonprofits, and donors. The foundation is committed to advancing racial equity and economic inclusion to ensure that everyone in the Bay Area has a chance to attend a good school, get a good job, live in a safe and affordable home, and have strong political voice. Learn more about the foundation strategy on equity grant making.
Andrea.
Okay, bye. Oh.
No, I think that was good. And
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So I think that's good because to me, that gets a little bit to the heart. I mean, you see they work in different program areas, but when you read about their purpose, activity, their mission and vision, you get sort of the heart of the foundation, like what they care about. and why they do, so that you can look at, do we line up?
And they work with people, well, specifically are trying to target people, women and people of color who have faced barriers and access to capital, which is probably a lot of people on here, not just gender-wise, but having barriers to access to capital investing, right? Finding the right programs, trying to get in.
I think we've got about 12 seconds left.
Oh, he did extend the time.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay. Oh, that's one. I have to go back to it because I'm off. Oh, no, we don't. We have 4. We have none. That's what to cut off on us.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michelle. You did really well.
Oh, appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
I hear nothing.
And I was in the middle of my thought when we came back.
I know. It was like a really good point. Like he left the room.
Yeah, just so I can finish it real quick. Around kind of creating budgets around this. Again, I've seen some folks who were really experienced eyeball a budget. Like literally, I'm in a meeting and saw folks just, this is what we need. This is how much, and gave exact numbers. Like, we need 57,450 for this staff. We need this for benefits. We need this for like literally bullet down. And then I've seen some folks kind of like, it took them like a month to really get all the pieces together to create that budget, and they still had more money left over because again, some of the things that they estimated, because again, you're doing something new unless you've already done it. It's going to take some experimentation, but make sure it's reasonable. I wouldn't necessarily ask for like $100,000 for something that obviously is going to take probably like 70 or 50. So, because
right. I'm sorry. I think my question was not quite clear. So know what your budget is, right? You've got a new program, right? In our case, we're scaling our work. When you look at a grant, what is considered reasonable? What percentage of your overall budget? So if your budget is $100,000 for your organization, you probably can't ask for $300,000 for funding for a new program. This is what I'm assuming. I could be wrong. Or if your budget is $5 million, what's the kind of percentage that you can ask for when you ask for a grant, based on how much money you actually have versus what you need? Because you probably need more than, you might be too big for your britches, but you can do the work.
I'm going to answer this very carefully because because I've been a part of organizations that have had a lot of money in the past, so grant funding was not necessarily a thing yet. I've been in some that like scrambled for every penny, and so it just depends on the scope of the work in the program. It depends on what the realistic ask is. It just really depends. Like even with some grants where they may ask, it may be the floor may be 50,000, the ceiling may be 200,000. They just ask for 51, right? And they're coming in with other grants and other supports to help with getting the program going, versus somebody asked for the maximum, but they justify everything within the proposal, like of what they may actually need and how big their collaboration can be. So I'm going to say, folks, it does depend on a couple of different pieces, Usually funders are very aware of how much money you probably have already. And if they like you, then we'll have a conversation. So, but sometimes I'm going to just always tell people to err on the side of caution, and try to do your research and do within the scope of the work, right? Not necessarily the whole organization's budget. Because again, a lot of things could vary. Hopefully that answers your question, and not trying to go too deep into it, because it does really depend. Oh, that's a good question though. That is always coming up for folks. Even when we ask that when we work for grants, we're like, how much do we ask for? We have a hand raised.
Dina.
Dina, thank you.
Hi. Hey, so just to kind of piggyback what you were saying, what I found is that you got to make sure that you're reading the RFP or the RFQ, RFA very carefully. Yes. Because sometimes in there they will stipulate a certain, that they'll say something like they want to fund only a certain percentage of your budget, or they're looking for a match. So it's really important to keep an eye out for that, because it's easy to just scan straight through it if you're just rushing trying to get the RFP in.
Yeah, that match portion is always a tricky one too, because it could be a match of services, it could be a match of equipment, it could be a match of cash. So just, be very mindful. Great point.
Yeah, great.
Faye, you got your hand up.
No, I was just going to piggyback on what Deanna had said, is that you sometimes have to consider matching funds that the foundation or the company, that they may specify that, and then they will specify it in either cash or in-kind services, and then you have to define in-kind services. So it can drill down to where you may want 25,000, or you may want 50,000, but you'll need to match in 25 or a percentage thereof. So it gets a little deep right there. So thank you, Deanna. That's what I've run up against a couple of times.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I'm sorry for digressing from our debrief. I wanted to really debrief. I also saw a question from Meg around admin costs. What's a good estimate? Ooh, that's something. Usually I see things within 5 to 10%. I say as high as 20%. It just depends. I wouldn't go past, like, I'll always say a safer number is like 15%. Some of the budgets I've been looking at. But again, it just depends. I've seen as high as 20 plus, just on how folks were trying to, like, they know we have money in there and they're asking for it. So, but also I've seen some government organizations ask for a lot in admin funds. So I'll always do some research that I can keep kind of very realistic. Hopefully that answers your question. Hopefully that answers the best way we can. For time, I'm just going to kind of move us along. I was going to put you back in into some of the breakout rooms, but I really wanted to debrief, and I don't want to dive back into the nuts and bolts of writing a proposal. So, all right, how was that? I know 20 minutes was a lot and not a lot at the same time. Give me some thoughts. What came up for you all?
I will say that you helped to give us direction, which way to go, because I have no idea, and just listening helps me to understand how to start. If I start at least, then we'll probably get somewhere, not instead of just sitting there just looking, going, I don't know how to do this. So that was a guide.
Again, some of it is trial and error too. So I'm just going to tell that to folks. Because, and then also some funders will just like help you along. It does depend. There's a lot of factors in this because they're highly competitive. What else is coming up for folks?
I actually liked, hi, my name is Carol, and I actually love how you kind of broke down the process, because I'm kind of like a process thinker, and it gave me a reality of what I really do need to do. And there's some really important steps that I need to pay more attention to. And even though I feel that I am, but I think I need to really just analyze each step that I'm doing, because I can miss something. So This is neat. I'm really enjoying this. So thank you so much.
Great. Also, we're going to talk about more and more about the instructions. Pay attention to the instructions. Like, even in grants.gov, it gives you that description, but it's not the full breakdown of what they're going to be asking, right? I wish I could show you an example of a grant. But yeah, I'll show you in a bit later. But I mean, I'm looking at 20-page documents around all these specific things, and then some grants are like 5 pages. Like, here are the requirements. I'm like, oh, like, this is it? Oh, wow. Okay. So again, just paying attention to the instructions. What else is coming up for folks? Let's see the chat.
Yeah, what came up for me, like, 'cause this is my first time, I was like, okay, I'm not looking for a grant or anything, but who knows what's gonna happen down the road. But the part that got me was when the sister talked about it could be a relationship. To whereas what I'm doing, dealing with nutrition, and that's what I do, it could be a company that's looking for a nutrition that's helping kids with autism, you know, because it has helped say like my grandson, he said a couple of words for the first time at 8 years old, you know, after he took the product. I'm not trying to sell here, but it could be a company just geared for that. And I might have, you know, what they need. Not that I need a grant, but just that relationship thing. So that was
you'll be surprised how many emails I get from folks that are like, hey, I was thinking about you, here's a grant, you know, this might be something that you might be interested in. I would strongly encourage you to apply, your organization to apply, or you to apply, right? That's the piece. You never know what you may find or what you may hear that could help out someone else. And again, bridging those relationships with folks. It could be a potential opportunity for all of us, right? It could be like something that comes up and like, oh yeah, we can all be a part, volunteer or partner organization. We never really thought of until we had that conversation and when we had a relationship. So thank you. Someone had their hand raised. Who I can't see. Somebody had their hand raised.
Hadu?
Yes, thank you.
It's Huda, but thank you.
Thank you, Huda.
So I'm really new to this grant writing process, and I've had misconception of the things that you mentioned early on before we went to Breakout was the idea that, oh, you just write and then money shows up, right? No, there's an actual process from establishing relationship and keeping those relationships, but also finding what the pain points are for the organization and introducing that to the foundations and make sure that it aligns with what it is that we're trying to establish. Like the lady mentioned, I forgot her name, but I'm also a very process-oriented person, so I need structure. So the breakout session was really helpful because it kind of gave me an insight to the back end of how the process of finding different foundations and what the funds that are available if you were to apply. So I thought that was very helpful.
Great. All right. Thank you for, yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of nuts and bolts. There's a lot of processes. And yeah, it is not just writing something and getting money. It is literally doing your research, doing the fun, figuring out the budget, figuring out the program, the program even aligns, if your organization even aligns, right? Just looking at what kind of grants there are. What do I consider the grant, or should I consider donations? Do I do a membership drive? Do I partner with somebody? Do I partner with the government or another nonprofit? You know, there's so many different factors in these that it does take time and energy, and that's why it can be overwhelming. But again, seek the support, get help, take time, take your time, apply. And then if you don't get it, learn from it. There's a large number of nonprofits that don't get grants. Like, I can't remember, I think it was like 80 or 90%. It was ridiculously high. So I'm saying like 10 to 15% of nonprofits actually get the grants they apply to. So it's very competitive. And then we talk about the nonprofit industrial complex. where folks are just kind of working against each other, even though we're all trying to do the same work and try to support the community. That's why I would encourage folks to take it from a different approach, work with a partner, work with people, get the help, turn it in, do it, get the feedback, talk to funders, talk to the grant contact people, grant officers, learn, educate, right? And see how you can do. With that, I know I'm short on time. Is it okay if I skip the 5-minute break and we just go on? I'm gonna take a silence as yes. Let somebody says no. Okay, cool. So we'll get into it. Okay, real quick. Types of proposals. So you have a couple of different types. So you'll see letter of intent or letters of inquiry. So you'll see folks writing those like mini proposals, those letters, sending to funders, or though you have full-blown grant proposals that outline every different piece, or then you'll also see the other piece, which is online applications. Like majority of the grants are online applications or some type of digital form. You'll see a PDF form you have to fill out, right? Or you have to go to a web portal, create an account, and then put in all those big pieces. But it's important to write this all out first. Now, I have on a rare occasion seen someone literally create an account, and they have a ton of experience writing grants. Create an account, and within a week less, just start writing everything and just turned it in. It was a beautiful grant proposal. Like the application was beautiful, and I was like, yeah. So she's like, Sean, I've been around. So it just really depends. But I'm encouraging folks to really write out the grant proposal so that you have everything. So when you go to that online application, you are totally prepared. But also first check out the application to see what you need to. We talked a little bit about this, and here are the nuts and bolts of it. So you have a cover letter typically when it comes to your grant proposal that pretty much demonstrates you understand kind of like the priorities and interests of the funder. So in reading the instructions, connecting with the funder if need be, to really make sure that you have all these different pieces, and how it aligns with your organization and your goal, right? These items are typically requested by the funder. They usually will ask you first. I think I saw one, I was doing some research last night just to kind of get some examples where they did want a cover letter or a letter of interest and it was specific to that foundation or that corporation. Executive summary, really concise, really important that you have the objective synopsis of your proposed grant application, right? So basically this is what it is. This is what we're presenting. This is the need. Here's how we're serving people. Here's the research, a bit of the research. Here's it has to be really concise and really stating, right? It has to be also compelling, just like your introduction. Your introduction needs to be compelling. It needs to really highlight the pieces of your proposal in your program. So it was a funny process. I was working with an organization one time, and they're talking about I think it's 10-second resumes. And so you only have 10 seconds or less to capture the attention of somebody and whether they want to hire you or not. And I take it like that as look at it from a funder's perspective. They get so many different applications. How can you stand out? Especially if I'm skimming through 200 applications, right? And at this point, I'm a little tired, right? So your intro statement, your executive summary, these cover letters need to really be the piece that grabs their attention. And they're like, I love your program. Even when I was sitting on a committee to review, to provide grant to folks, right? My brain is not working right now. I literally started looking at, it was I think 100 applications. I just started skimming through and I was like, I'm boring. Oh, this is nice, right? They grab me within those few seconds, right? So that's why it takes some time, really retool, really work with people, see if it grabs you, right? See if it grabs people, right? Again, making sure that you're clear, you're concise, you're compelling. And then the other piece is correct, consistent, comprehensive, right? Please make sure you are clear, that it is clear, it's understandable, that you are precise, specific, right? As you possibly can, right? And it's compelling, that it grabs the person that I can just feel the impact, right? I just love this program. And that is correct. I've seen applications with typos. I've seen folks where it just doesn't make sense. It was out of alignment. right? Again, the consistency piece, making sure that you are being consistent with your program, right? And that it's comprehensive, that I totally understand and get the different components of what you're trying to do, okay? Other piece that comes up is really just around the problem statement, making sure you describe the issue and the current need clearly. It comes up a lot. So making sure that you really do understand the problem, you understand the need, and what helps with that is doing that research, providing some of the context in the studies, right? You talk about how we just looked at a grant that was coming from Department of Health, and like how is health connected to, how is violence, community violence connected to health? Well, mortality rates, right? Health and nutrition, right? Stress levels, right? So if I am in a community where I'm in constant duress, right? That it's not, somebody described it, it's not PTSD, it's because it's post, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. It's continuous traumatic stress disorder, right? So I'm constantly experiencing stress, right? That it impacts my health, right? Then you should show, then if you're applying for a grant and you're trying to address that, especially within the health component, you want to make sure you do your research, right? You want to see how community violence really impacts people's health, in their way of life, right? And so if you're trying to address that, again, it helps to provide that extra evidence, right? Again, the problem itself, the method of solving the problem, right? And then testing the problem, right? Community violence is really deep and systemic, and it's extremely hard to really address it in the shift. But it may be a multi-tier approach to it. It may see introducing new employment opportunities, introducing new youth programs, introducing different ways for folks to address their health, having more community collaborations, right? That might be a part of the strategy and the effort and you have to show how those kinds of initiatives have helped that community address this issue, right? And so continue to say that to people, right? Methods. So the methods in which you're going to do this, right? Just making sure overview of what you're doing should include the target population, the activity, the timeline, the budget, the rationale of the methods, right? In which you're doing and you're doing the evaluation, okay? Your evaluation, show your design and documentation at the beginning. So make sure you have the tools and the processes ready to evaluate the effectiveness of your program before you begin. This should be right when you're creating the program, right? If you're an existing program, you should already have these mechanisms put in place. Ways to measure, ways to collect. I always tell people, even like, you could have a database, you could use some Salesforce software, you could just use a Google Doc, right? Google spreadsheet, right? Collect your data, but have a way to evaluate it, right? Bring in volunteers and consultants. There's a couple of volunteer pages that you can go to, find volunteers that can help you with building out your evaluation tools to help you with assessing impact, right? Again, determine your outcomes, where met and how you can make that impact. Get the feedback from the target population. You want to hear from the people you're trying to serve. I find it fascinating that folks do not actually talk to the folks they're providing services to. I find it very fascinating. And people look at me like, you talk to them? Like, yeah, I actually walk down and talk to people. Like, how are you feeling? How is this doing? I need feedback. I need the feedback right now, right? We live in a culture where we're using a lot of social media to get feedback, and a lot of people are afraid of that. And I'm just like, if you are dedicated to really addressing issues, helping people receive the feedback, incorporate it and see how you can change up, because you may have to change your program within the mid-year to really make sure you hit those outcomes, because it's really about serving the people, right? Making sure the description of data collection methods and analysis. So you are collecting the data and you're doing some analysis. You're taking some time to look at what's happening. Description of how the results will be reported. So basically that's going to be within the grant reporting measures. I always tell people, what are the grant reporting measures? Where's templates? So I was looking at one template the other day and I was like, oh, does this really apply to this? I don't think this really applies to this. Okay, good. And then I'm even talking with the funder and I'm just like, yo, kind of had a question real quick about this, that, this, that. I didn't say yo, but, just to make sure that I'm reporting this correctly, making sure our tools are collecting it accurately, making sure that we have all the pieces in place so that when we write the report, it's accurate and we can submit it, right? And then describe how evaluation results can be used to inform and modify. Again, you're looking at how you can modify and change. So you might not necessarily change up mid-year, right? Or within a couple of months of the program. You might change like, oh, so we did this year. Now we're looking to do some things differently based off the feedback, right? You want to always constantly strive to improve your program, making sure that it is not just for this more funding, but also to make sure that it's relevant for the service population. So I'm putting a quick example of this, and just looking at this is the problem, this is the need, this is what we're trying to do. It's really around literacy rates, around high schoolers. And so just remember that you have something realistic, that you understand the problem, that you understand what you're trying to do. You have your methods of measuring and evaluation, and then you have some outcomes, and then you see a result. Budget elements. So this is the fun part. This is always the one where I tell you, do all your research and you still could be off. The budget should be aligned with your program. I'm always going to keep saying that. All the items should be aligned with it. Make sure your proposal includes personnel and non-personnel expenses. So it should have how much you're going to pay people if you're getting funding for that. Program costs, every itemized item, right? But it doesn't have to be like the pen, but like for office supplies, for admin costs, for travel. Make sure you have those pieces really built out and you do your research, right? Include new costs, ongoing costs, right? So I remember we have one for communications. It's ongoing for cell phones. It's going to be ongoing. So that's always going to be an item, right? So they budgeted enough for not just that initial month, but also for the duration of the program, right? Make sure, again, it's within that timeline, maybe even beyond a bit. Note, you may need to include a budget narrative. So some of that comes up. Some people want to know, just don't give me like the spreadsheet. Make sure you need to kind of talk about why you need these pieces or what you're doing. Give a narrative around that, especially when it's requested. Explore ways to keep your program funded beyond. So you're going to look at beyond this one. So you're going through, and it shouldn't be this whole, we're probably going to do this 1 year because we only have one. The grant is only for 1 year. You should also be exploring like how you can keep it going, especially if it's creating an impact. And that probably should happen before you even turn it into the grant application. Always start thinking about years down the line. So your strategic plan with your organization, your program should go at least a minimum of 3 years. If you're looking at it from that perspective, if you're looking at keep it going, right? If you're looking at just doing one program this year and that's it, that's totally fine too. But 3 to 5 years is really should be where your strategic plan is for programming within your organization, but always looking for ways to fund it beyond. Researching, always research your opportunities, always research your funder, looking at the different ways you can fund your funding opportunities. So always look for those opportunities best you can. Submit to the funder. So basically what you're going to do. So once you got everything together, that you have it written out, you have all these things going, you always want to, when you submit, you want to make sure you follow up. You want to follow up within 2 to 3 weeks of the submission of the application. You want to be prepared and ready. So you're going to be prepared and ready for site visits, ask those hard questions. If you have to do more research, if you they want you to retool your proposal. I've seen that where they kicked it back and like, we need you to add these pieces, right? Because funders will actually do their research on you. So don't think that like, oh, I'm doing my research on them and I'm doing all this stuff. No, they'll do their research to you. Some funders have even reached out to us and like, this may be an opportunity, we want to let you know because we like your organization and we really want you to apply, right? So keep that in mind when you have that relationship or you're building that relationship. Be prepared for those hard questions. Be prepared to get a kickback because those things come up. Keep them front and informed. Things change, things are happening. Make sure you keep informed, especially minimum level contact people. They shift or change. People might transition. Make sure they know who the new contact person is, because they could say, "Hey, you got the grant," and then it goes to an email that doesn't to a person that doesn't is not with that organization anymore. So you make sure you have those people in place. That's a bad example, right? But you keep them informed of things are changing within your program or organization as it relates to the grant. I'm not saying tell everybody everything, just telling how it relates to the grant. Acknowledge and recognize recognition of the grant. So if you're awarded, acknowledge it, say we received it, thank you so much, get some recognition to the funder, and make sure you get some acknowledgement to them, especially when you're doing the program. That's a common courtesy, that's a part of it, that might be a part of even the grant requirements, especially from some corporate grants. I know that they make it a point that acknowledgement and recognition, because it's a part of some of their initiatives that they're doing. And then maintain the relationship. Make sure that you are maintaining the relationship with the funder, that you're connecting with them, and that you are, that if there's also other opportunities. I've seen it where funders will reach out, working with folks for years, and they'll reach out and like, hey, it's maybe another opportunity. Do you know any nonprofits that might be interested in this? Or maybe if you're interested in this, right? Or I've seen some that are very hands-off. I remember one funder, I was like, I haven't talked to you in like 2 years. so I was like, yeah, you're fine, we're good. Like we're done, right? So, but maintaining a good and healthy relationship is key to this as well. Again, looking at some different examples of some funders. I don't know if I can see this. I'm going to share again this one screen. So here's some examples of some applications. I want to make sure folks knew. So this was a grant scholarship application, 5-year research plan. This is like a research grant, pretty much outlines, summarizes 5-year research plan, including the research described here. Whatever, where am I going? Where am I going with this? I'm on. This pretty much described, I was trying to look for one point of it. And it had a couple of different points of, here's their plan for their mentoring, and summarize our 5-year mentoring plan. No, don't want that. Take me out of something, take me out of something. All right, there, all right. This is better, all right. Here we go. Here it shows the kind of the research plan, how each proposed mentor will do these pieces. Mentor 1 will be doing this. This is a kind of an overview of what they've done. To the associate director, they just describe who's doing what. Here's their introduction. Here is kind of like the points they want to make. Previous research that they've done. And this is a more elaborate grant proposal for some research. So I wanted to show you that for one example. Let me show you another example real quick. All right, give me 1 second, 1 second. There we go. All right. And then looking at this other one. I'm gonna share it. Here we go. This is a good one. Here's another example of a grant proposal where it actually does have a cover letter here. It is to the executive director of this foundation. And it basically says, hey, we're middle school. We're pleased to present this proposal to you. Again, it just talks about kind of who they are, how they deal with 50 at-risk youth for reading performance. And then it kind of talks about the details of what they do and how much they're requesting. And then we look at kind of the piece with their sample grant proposal here with the abstract of the overall scope of it, kind of like their summary or overview of the proposal, statement of need, program description, the technology they're using to support the young people, and then they even included some references around their research on what they found. The goals and objectives that they have here, the goal of the Read to Success project is enable high risk in students in learning and reading, enable and abilities to improve their reading skills to a point where they can succeed in school. So, and then they have their different objectives here by providing measurable increases in reading speed, enabling poor readers. I don't like that word, poor readers, but hey, poor readers to access general curriculum, providing learning disabled students with multi-sensory reading, right? Like really, really specific things that they can do that's within their scope, right? Then they have a timeline here. So they actually include the grant, or the proposal. You'll see the expectations here. You'll see, like, again, you'll see, again, the grant notification expectations. And again, you'll see the whole timeline of how the project will go. Then they have their budget here, and then they kind of break down how much technology is going to be. They're really looking at the technology piece in the software, even something from the scanner, because they're only asking for 16,500, right? So they're really being specific around, hey, this is what we need for this package. This is what we need for the maintenance of the software. We need a scanner. We need a computer, and we're paying for the training for 1 day, right? This is how they evaluate things. This is how how the organization will do. And then again, there's some more samples here. I want to put this in the chat so that you'll have it. And that way you can kind of use this as an example of, use this example of, a good example of how to write a grant. 1 second, copy it. There you go. So that's a good example of a grant, folks. Okay. And then sharing. All right. Oh, I got it. All right. So yeah. So several grant tips. So this is the piece I want to spend some time on, make sure folks know. So thing that comes up for folks in the challenges that come up for people is that's my typo, not doing proper research. So the program really does need to align with the problem, with the need. So making sure you do your research, and we keep saying that, is something that's key. Another piece that comes up is not following the instructions. Constantly need to follow the instructions. You need to follow the directions of the funder. You can miss one key detail, like your proposal is immaculate, the best proposal you've ever done in your life, the best proposal anybody has ever seen. And then you miss one key detail of the instructions and you're not eligible for the grant. And it could be a slight change, not eligible for the grant, right? So really want to make sure that folks are reading the instructions, right? You also talked about this before, not having a compelling introduction or summary. Even being on some committees, selecting folks for a grant, organizing for a grant. Looking at 100, I was like, after 20, I was like, my brain was a little fried. So I was like, if they didn't have a compelling introduction, if things weren't like, their budget and what the request wasn't reasonable, it was kind of like, and I also had a maybe pile too. But making sure you have that really compelling introduction and executive summary really does help. Not having a clear need statement, just go back to it again, making sure that your need statement is clear, making sure it's really concise, and then not having a clear measurables or goals, like and outcomes. So if you're not telling me how you're going to measure something, I'm not going to consider it. If you're telling me that it's not something that that doesn't align with your program, then you're probably not going to get the goal. So really, again, take the time out to make sure that your outcomes and your goals are measurable. And if you need help with that, really seek out the support. Other pieces that come up are not having appropriate methodologies and evaluation processes. Again, making sure that you actually have the pieces to measure and to do the work and measure the impact. Not leveraging community resources and partners. Partner with people if you can. It's really important to kind of do that, especially with grants now, because they want to see folks leveraging existing resources and partners, especially if you're not like an expert in A, B, C, right? You might be an expert in one aspect of it. You might take like, hey, I'm an expert in the technology, but we're not necessarily an expert in health. So we may partner with a health organization to help with that component, right? So, or there might be some local resources that could really help and really reinforce the things. Other pieces, having an imbalance of narrative and numbers. I talk to people about this. You could have a great narrative, no numbers, no research, nothing. And I'm just like, what is this? This sounds beautiful, but I like to see some research around this, right? Or it's all numbers. And I was like, yeah, this is nice, but this is not compelling, right? You're dealing with human beings too. So it is complex. So making sure you have that right balance is really important. Not doing your research with your budget. We just talked about this. It's some people have, we talked about today, like that sweet spot with the budget is really just around doing the research and making sure that you're hitting those items. If there are pieces within the grant where you have to do an in-kind or match or some specific, make sure you take note of that and make sure you apply with your budget, right? Yeah, doing your homework and making sure that you are not just eyeballing. Again, I've seen some folks that just know their stuff and they just tell you on top of their head, here's how the budget's going to be, and exact numbers. If you're not one of those people, do your research. All right, cover letter tips. Really quickly, be brief, do not repeat, understand the reader, the funder, where they're coming from, and the requirements. Be succinct, make sure that your paragraphs are short and succinct, make sure your introduction doesn't have to be super short, I'm not saying that, but like make sure it's clear, to the point, concise, and tells the funder how much money that you need. If you saw those examples of cover letters, right? That paragraph about the funding was right, that little paragraph near the end. This is how much we need. But it took some time out to explain who they are, what the problem is, what they're trying to do, what the need is. And again, going back to that need, making sure there's a couple of sentences there to really help with that really forces your research and shows that the organization can address this issue. Other pieces, right, with the cover letter, limit your cover letter to 1 page. Do not do some 4 or 5 page. No, just do 1 page. As you saw from the examples, it's 1 page. There's 3 or 4 paragraphs. It's really there. Use the same date that you're sending the completed grant application. Make sure the line that aligns. Close your cover letter with a summary, a summarizing paragraph. Share a closing thought. Share some inspiration. As you saw from some of the examples they did. And then also include at the bottom of your letter, include some enclosures or attachments. If you have them, there might be some brochures, there might be some things that are relevant to help the funder with kind of selecting you. Right? Proposal tips, make sure you're be prepared. And again, do your research. Write with the reviewer in mind, be a storyteller, focus more on the solutions than the problem. Again, you outline the problem, talk about the solutions. Right? Key, outline the problem, talk about the solutions, right? Write your grant application clearly, boldly, right? Evan, you got your hand up, your hand raised.
There's 2 quick questions. I know we're approaching time.
Yeah.
Just real quick, the first question. Can you trust that, let me go back to the question. Sorry, it was just there. Oh, realistic. Question, how realistic is it to expect funders to respond if you have questions about why you were denied?
Yeah, this has been a tricky one too, because I've gotten no calls, no responses, and I got some feedback. It's rare, it is rare. Again, it goes back to the relationship. I would be proactive and establish a relationship before. I know folks don't want to necessarily provide that feedback sometimes because it can be politically tricky. And so I would just take it from a perspective of, if you can get feedback, appreciate it. If you can't, it's totally fine, and just move on. So, but yeah, establish a relationship beforehand and see how, again, you can improve and do. But yeah, I haven't received a lot of feedback from some of the grants I got denied on.
And the second question is, do you add who you're partner with on your application, on your grant? If you're partnering with an organization, do you add them on there?
Articulate the program. Make sure you have a partnership in mind. I remember when we were requesting requesting requisites for proposals, and they submitted proposals with, like, this is the program, here's what we're partnering with, here's what we're doing. It should be outlined within your proposal. And you and the organization should agree to it, because I've seen some like, yeah, we're gonna partner with the folks, but they never really had a real conversation. and I approached that organization like, hey, I heard about your partner with blah, blah. Like, you did? And I was like, oh, they really, ooh. So make sure you're really partnering with folks, but it should be a part of your program proposal. It should be part of your plan. So, but yeah, hopefully those answers the questions. All right. Going back to this, I'm gonna keep repeating this. Follow directions. I'm gonna keep saying that every time. It's a big point, and it's one of the reasons why folks do not receive the grant. If you don't underestimate the time it takes to craft these things. We talked about that before. It takes a lot of time to craft these things. It might take you more time than what you may think. So start small and start early, but start. That's the whole piece to consider. Highlight your strengths, not your needs. Make sure you highlight what you can do, not really what you need, because we all need something, but also highlight what you can do. Involve those that you serve in the design of your program. Again, like you talked about the partners, make sure you involve those folks. You target a specific project for your proposal. Just make sure you target a specific project, like make sure it's specific, concise, right? Partners, you can't be the Lone Ranger. Make sure you have partners or have some supports. A lot of funders love the fact that you're partnering with folks, especially within the community, to really address that need. Demonstrate that you have designed the most cost-effective solution. So make sure, again, you're double checking your budget to make sure it's cost-effective. Don't just put some numbers in there just to put some numbers in there. Make sure that they're actually relevant in what you're doing. Increase your skills by reading successful grants. So go out there, research, look at the grants, look at those who have been awarded. There's a lot, especially with government grants, there are a number of links you can go to see who's been awarded, and then you're like, why? And then someone actually have examples. So just want to be mindful to do your research, and then be persistent. Again, what is it, 15%? Not even that probably are of nonprofits actually receive grants. You still just got, I will still continue to not be discouraged, continue on to see if you one day will get that grant. You might want to start smaller, you might want to change your strategy. And also don't just rely just on grants. There's different ways to get funding. So think about that as well. Resources. Again, this PowerPoint will be posted on the website anyway, and some of the stuff is too quick. But again, there's different grant websites you can go to look for grants. Some are shared in the chat. There's also volunteer opportunities. So for people where you can go to volunteer match services that can help you with preparing grants or help you with different pieces that you need. And then there's also some grant writing tools like grantwriters.net. Great resources there to help you with writing your grant. So with that pretty much concludes our presentation. We wanted to highlight a couple of different things about upcoming workshops. So just want to say next month we are doing our proposal writing clinic. So if you need some one-on-one support, please come. Or if you need group support, because I like to do the peer sharing, it's really great. Come on to our next workshop next month, where it's going to be open style. People can come and get those questions answered. April, we're doing transformative program planning, really informative workshop. May, we're having a clinic. So you're going to see the pattern is that after each workshop, we're going to do a clinic. So if you missed or you had specific questions, you can also go to that workshop to get that question answered. In June, we'll have Principles of Nonprofit Law. Then we'll have a clinic in July. August, we'll have the power of emerging business technologies for faith-based sector. Then we'll have that clinic in September. And then our last thing will be the One Voice 2022 Faith Leadership Forum in the celebration reception. So that'll be in October. We're also going to be having a leadership networking opportunity for folks. What successful organizational leaders need to know. Typos. So that's going to be Tuesday, April 26th. And we're going to talk more about that as we go on. And then that is it. So we are at time. I want to thank everybody for coming out and doing. Again, please fill out the survey, which will be in the chat. We encourage the folks to do that for us. And then also please give us our feedback. And then also going back to the one-on-ones, we are here if you need support. We do provide up to a few hours of support for folks. It was up to 6 at this point. 6 hours of support for one-on-ones if you need technical assistance. So please go to our website, www.modelfaith.org. Click the apply here for the one-on-one technical assistance, fill out the application, and then we should be getting back to you within 40 hours. Okay. All right. If there are no questions, we are at 11 o'clock. Thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you next time.